So the other night, yesterday maybe even, I think it was yesterday, I was looking at the Wall Street Journal, just pulled it up because I was looking for something. And this was kind of the core front page, right? There was kind of one headline above this. Actually, no, these were the main headlines. So yeah, it was last night because Barrett was confirmed. So, and I looked at this and something really jumped out for me that was just really notable, very notable, in fact. And I'm wondering if you all look at this, and I'm wondering what you might say that really, or what you might see that really jumps out. But it absolutely did, and I found myself, and talking to my wife, and I'm like, that's really big. So the thing is, what's really big is this ant raised more than $34 billion in a record IPO. And Ant is a company that grew out of Alibaba, and Alibaba is the parent. Alibaba is the Chinese equivalent of Amazon. It's run by Jack Ma. And so Ant is kind of emerged out of a sector of Alibaba. And Ant has, in the words of one commentator that I was reading, is single-handedly revolutionizing or modernizing the financial infrastructure of China. And this is the reason this is big is because it was a record IPO raise. IPO stands for initial public offering, right? And it is a record $34 billion. And most importantly, it entirely bypassed New York City. So they bypassed New York stock exchanges and the West. Nothing in London, nothing in New York City. This was entirely Chinese, and they raised $34 billion. It was sort of split, I think, between, as best as I can get, I didn't spend much time with it, but Hong Kong and Shanghai. And a record, and bypassed the West, bypassed New York City, the financial capital of the world. And y'all, listen, man, the future is China. If you're not, we're going to talk about China later in the semester, but this is big. This is so big. And we're going to increasingly see these kinds of things. And so just seeing this emergence of China in this way. And, like just Ant and Alibaba have just revolutionized how Chinese citizens spend money, borrow money, invest money, and probably save money. And so you just I can't overestimate how big this is. So anyway, that jumped out to me. Say, wow, here we are. You know what I mean? Here we are. This is where we're going. And so I think one of the reasons that this class is necessarily split between both the United States and international domains or international areas is because you cannot, the future of the United States is also the future of the rest of the world. And the future of the rest of the world is connected to the future of the United States. But you just cannot understand in any way where we are or where we're going without taking into account other countries. And so with that in mind, I just wanted to kick my camera on for David here. So with that in mind, let's talk about the title of today's class is Rising Expectations and Social Unrest, as I would call it, but really rising expectations. And so I'm watching what's going on in Nigeria, by the way. So surprisingly, what's happening in Nigeria was not on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but it had been on the front page for the previous week or so, right? Because also what's happening in Nigeria is really, really, really big. And so can you bring David in really quickly so we can just meet you for a hot minute, and then I'll come back. And so David, are you Do you live in Nigeria or are you Nigerian American?
I guess I'm Nigerian American. Yeah, because like I've been born here. I was born in North Carolina, but my parents are they were born in Nigeria, both of them.
Hmm. And your parents refer to themselves as Nigerian, I assume.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And they refer to you as Nigerian,
Yeah, I guess so.
right? Not Black American, African American, Nigerian
Well, like
American. Do they call you Nigerian or Nigerian American? Just out of
well,
curiosity.
no, like it's like I'm Nigerian, but I'm also African American. So like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no like definitive one.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I got you. So are you, so stand for a second. I just want to ask you a couple of questions and then I'm going to talk and then I want to bring you back on, right? But are you following? I mean, how closely are you following what's happening?
I've been following a little bit. It's it's like really crazy to think about and talk about because like I was talking to my mom about it the other day and she was like basically explaining to me about the situation and like it's kind of similar in what's happening in America where basically it's kind of in this boiling point of like where basically the corruption's so bad and like there's no like there's the police force in that country's unchecked and then the politicians are very corrupt so it's like it's almost like this big boiling pot where just everything's exploded at once so yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, totally, man. What is, do your parents travel back and forth?
Not anymore. I know like when we were younger they used to travel a lot more, but usually they travel it's around like it's like a family member dies and stuff.
Yeah, got you, man. Got you. All right. So, well, so here's what I'm going to do. I want to talk about a few things. And when you feel like you are want to kind of jump in with something, why don't you jump in? And if you can like, uh, just raise your hand in the chat. But otherwise, I want to come back to you at the end. I'm going to talk a little bit and I want to come back to you. So I'm just going to raise a lot of things. And then I want you to give your perspective a little bit, like what you've heard and what you know and what you're thinking as somebody with Nigerian ancestry. Um, and by the way, the reason I was asking about his parents and whether they refer to them or him as Nigerian or Black Americans or Nigerian Americans, because Nigerians are just really are just just Africans in general. There's just this like sense of cohesiveness and a certain kind of pride. That's like people will carry that Nigerian identity, and we see this with different people, right? Like Italians do this, but carry that identity down through multiple generations, right? So there's an assimilation that happens, but still people use a kind of identity and language. That's pretty powerful. So, bro, so you got that? So if you want to jump in, just jump in at any point. Just like raise your hand on Zoom, and Jeff will bring you in, or Darnish will bring you in, and otherwise, and and if there's anybody else who wants to jump in, who's also identifies as Nigerian, that's cool. Um, that would be fine. So listen. So here's the thing, right? There's a there's this theory of revolution. So one of my in my graduate school training, I was focused a lot on I focused on revolutions and social movements and collective action. And so I had kind of my primary you do an expertise in certain areas when you work on a PhD, right? But you always have your subdomains, your sub areas. And my main area was Latin America, and the political economy of Latin America. And my subdomains was African political economy, but then also social movements and revolutions. And so one of the things in that time that I learned about is this kind of it's what we refer to as like the J curve theory of revolution, right? Like revolutions don't we imagine that things just get really bad and they get bad and bad and bad and at some point they get so bad that people explode and then we see just people go out in the streets. But in fact, what we often see is that revolutions they really happen. People are most likely to protest and most likely to go out in the streets when things are getting better. And then the expectations are rising and rising and rising. And then at some point they go down, or they should be getting better, right? By all accounts, things should be getting better, and especially for the middle class, but they're not. And things just keep getting stopped. And so the middle class needs space in which to sort of move forward, right? And to rise up. And so here, if you go to this first slide, so like this is from the other day. So you can see, and so right here, and the SARS, it says, and SARS. And SARS is a special anti-robbery squad. And SARS is, so I want to kind of walk you through, if you read about this, and I'm going to tell you, by the way, in a hot minute, why this is really, why we should be focusing on this, why Nigeria is so, what's happening in Nigeria, I think is equally as important as what's happening in China. But SARS is this special police squad that was formed, couple decades ago, just that basically was just to stop just street crime. And just all the stops were pulled out, man. Just do whatever you need to do. So the government, established these units. They were unmarked, and the police didn't have to carry badges, and the police didn't have to identify themselves. Unmarked cars. They basically could do anything they want, and they just became these roving gangs of thugs, so to speak, right? And just started committing more crimes than as many crimes, probably not really, but anyway. It's seemingly as many crimes as the people that they were trying to stop from committing crimes, right? So the idea right now, when you see these, when you read about Nigeria and you read about this in the news, and you pick up an article, you're going to see references to SARS, and like that's the thing that everybody is talking about, like SARS, a special anti-robbery squad, right? But SARS is just a trigger point. And SARS is just the thing. There's always a trigger point. And the trigger point when you have an uprising is the thing that people can really focus on. So it's kind of like here in the United States. People, when George Floyd was killed by a police officer and back in July, like, no, that wasn't, God, time, man. I'm in like a time warp thinking, when was George Floyd killed? God, I don't even know what. So, but when George Floyd was killed, nothing's going to happen. Like nothing's going to emerge. People aren't going to go out in the streets if there aren't other precipitating factors, other things that are happening at the same time. So let me show you a couple of things and show you why Nigeria is important. So take a look at these numbers here, right? So here's world population in 2017, and look at where we're at. 1.4 billion. China's the most populous country in the world, but China and India, it's really hard to say. To be honest with you, it's hard to say which country is larger. But the U.S. is 325 million and Nigeria is number 7 at about 206 million people. Okay, so all right, number 7, so down. And so take a look at what the estimate. The projections for the world population will be in 2100. India at 1.1 billion. So it's going to go down. Look at Nigeria at number 2, 791 million. Number 2, y'all, right? China, number 3. So the Chinese population is going down. As China gets wealthier, the Chinese population goes down. So check that. And the US is more or less going to be about the same, right? We're going to grow and then we're going to come back down. Listen, this is if we're even around in 2100. But the point being, Nigeria is projected to be, by the way, is projected to be the second most populous country in the world. Nigeria is really, in many ways, would be an economic hub of Africa and really important and really central. And so Nigeria is an important nation for us to be thinking of. It's important today. It's going to be important 30 years from now, and it's going to be important 80 years from now. And so let me show you a couple things, right? Hey, by the way, David, just a quick thing to you. Did you know that? Have you ever talked about the projections of Nigeria? You didn't?
No, I did not know that at all.
Yeah.
At all, no.
Yeah, so I mean, this is big, right? Like this is just, whoa. So look, go to the next slide. Hey, and by the way, y'all, wait, hang on, pull that down 1 second. I just want to say something before we talk about that. It really, I know that sometimes like the world's a really big place, and it's hard to even just kind of figure out who, our own reality, right? Like just the world around us, man. Just try to figure out what's going on in my own backyard. Um, but I really do want to encourage you all to give some thought to these aren't just speculatory issues. The kinds of things that I'm talking about, what I was talking about with China, what I'm talking about here in Nigeria, will affect your lives, and in one way, shape, or form. And they don't directly impact your lives; they will impact the lives of your children. It doesn't matter what your ancestry is. So, for me, I'm just picking out the things that I think are really of value for us. So, so go take a look at this. So this is Nigeria's population so we're looking at 2004, the population is about 200 million. Okay, Nigeria is growing fairly quickly at this stage, but 69 million people living in poverty by UN standards. In 2010, 112 million people, it was estimated. So this is in spite of the fact that the average economic growth rate in Nigeria is 7%, which is extraordinary. That's higher than China during this period, 7%. And the population, the people living in poverty almost doubled, and yet the economy was just booming like crazy. So we're dealing with a poverty issue. And you think, oh, okay, so here's the issue, it's poverty. But like, no, it's generally not poverty, because for the most, poverty is part of it, right? But for the most part, these protests that are happening in Nigeria are not the poorest of the poor. These protests that are happening are much more from the middle class, and that's what's really notable about them. So there are people like David here, right? There are people that if you were out protesting with them, the average Penn State student, if you were out protesting with you, these would be like your friends. These would be people who would be here at Penn State. Actually, Nigerians here at Penn State tend to be much wealthier. But go to the next slide. So I look at so here is a showroom in Lagos. This guy's looking at a Porsche car, right? So you got the poverty in Nigeria, and then you got the wealth. And you have extraordinary poverty, and you have extraordinary wealth, right? And in between, you've got this middle class. These middle class with these rising expectations and these ideas that they know, like, yeah, I'm probably never going to have a Porsche. I'm not going to be this guy. I'm not even going to be allowed into a showroom where I might see a Porsche. I might sit in one. I may even just dream, whereas, here you could go out to the Benz dealership. Even if you're poor, you could walk around and pretend like you got money, and you could sit in and maybe take one for a test drive. That's never going to happen. But you may have an idea if you're middle class in Nigeria, and that you are like, hey, but I might have a car, but I want to own a car, right? One day. And so here, take a look at the next slide. So this is middle class in Africa right now. Unfortunately, it does show right here, these two different, I can't ascertain the difference between these two colors. So I don't know where the middle class, actually, it probably doesn't even exist where it's over. But look right here. This doesn't look like a lot. This is how the middle class has grown. So see down here, it's 1980, and down here, 2010, and the middle class just starts growing. And this doesn't seem like a lot. This is all over Africa. This isn't just Nigeria. It doesn't seem like it's growing a lot, but it's growing. And this number is, there we go. This number is going to continue to grow. It's just going to shrink. And the blue is going to get smaller, and the red's going to grow larger. And these are all people who are increased. They have skills. They're college educated. They're graduating from college. They're wanting a job. They're expecting a job. This is just this growth in Africa, by the way, which the Chinese are investing in left, right, and center, my friends. When I was in Ethiopia, it was every crane that I saw all over Addis Ababa had Chinese lettering on it. Every crane, man. The Chinese are just investing like crazy in Africa, but this middle class with the rising expectations. Okay. So David, I'm definitely going to want you to respond to that. Say something about that, what you see and what you know. So here, go to the next slide. So I want to show you this photo. Like these people protesting here, these are middle class youth, man. These are not the poorest of the poor. These are middle class folk. They are folks who are expecting and wanting and anticipating something that can happen to them. Next slide, same thing. And they are saying no more. Like, we're not going to deal with it, and we don't want to deal with it. And once again, right, this is like in the middle class in Nigeria is going to be different than the middle class here, but it's the similar sort of vision, the similar sort of mentality, the similar sort of folks that are going out to coffee shops and cafes and hanging out and doing whatever they're doing, whatever the middle class here does, and expecting that and wanting that, and really into their clothes and really into everything that is, man, into everything that the middle class here is all about, right? So let me show you this. Here's a couple other things. Well, hang on. We can go back to that slide. Hey, David, let me just bring you back in really fast. When I'm talking about this, right, what's your sense of it? Like, what are you hearing from?
Well, like when you talk about stuff like China and like them investing a lot into like Nigeria and other African countries, a lot of it stems from like the politicians' corruption. Like the corruption there is like it's like really bad to a point where it almost comes like a little comical. Like there was like one story my mom was telling me how like a politician was getting questioned for basically straight up just stealing money, and the way he got out of it was that he pretended to pass out in the middle of like a confession. Right. And it's almost like a norm. It's almost like a norm there, and it's like really weird. But even with the corruption there, the people in Nigeria they kind of like thrive, and they still are able to do well amidst the. So like that's kind of where like a lot of it stems from. Where, like
they're able to do well, but there's a ceiling there. Like all these people in the streets, man, there's like a ceiling, and they know they're not going to move into those well-paying jobs that should be there if it wasn't for the corruption. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, and then when you're talking about the point of like the ceiling and stuff, and like just the job opportunities. I know like one of my cousins, he was like he's very smart, and he like a biomedic and stuff, and he felt like he almost like made it his mission to come to America because he felt that he couldn't find a proper job that was like because of the, like as you were saying, like the ceiling and stuff. And now like when he comes here to America, he's having to struggle to even reach to anywhere to the education level that he has, where basically he's working part-time as like a janitor and stuff, even though like he's probably smarter than even most of the people that are even in college right now.
And by the way, like, so at the most highly educated migrants for a couple of decades anyway in the United States are Africans for the most part. And like you can come up from South America, you can walk across the border, you can get here in lots of different ways. There's so many ways, but Africans, if you migrate to the US from Africa, A, if you have the money to do it, and B, if you're able to get the visa and get permission and make it happen, you've got money. And so what we see are these highly educated Africans here. So if you meet an African who's migrated to the US, you can assume that there's about a 2 out of 3 chance that they have a college degree. So like David, I don't even ask about your parents. I know they went to college, right? I mean, I just know that's just a given.
I'm not sure the stat.
Go to college.
I'm not sure the stat is still there, but I'm pretty sure Nigerians are the smartest immigrants in the U.S. And yeah, my parents were they went to college in Nigeria, and then they came to America, and they both had gotten degrees in college. My mom went to like multiple colleges, and she has like a master's degree and stuff. And my dad got a master's as well.
Which is why, there's such a distinction with many Africans and African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans, right? Because to get here as Africans, you're just almost necessarily going to have a much higher level of education. It's just guaranteed you're going to have gone to college, you're going to have. Yeah. So here, let me show you, let me talk about the corruption for a second here, but let me show you a couple of things. Jeff, you can put the one. So this is So this is today. About I estimated about 210 million. We don't know, but I guess I throw another million on than what we had earlier. But 70% of Nigerians are under 30 years of age. So you got this huge youth population in Nigeria, and it's estimated about 14 million are unemployed youth, right? And of Nigerians, unemployed youth. So you've got these pressures where people, it's like what you said about your cousin, right? It's like you can't move forward. You have these expectations and you're seeing the possibility and you're watching your country grow and you're watching your country move into the global market and you're seeing it connect to all over the world and all, the Nigerian Nollywood in Nigeria, right? It's like Nollywood puts out, like the second most highest number of films of anywhere in the world. So you have Bollywood, you have Nollywood, and then you have Hollywood, right? And so Nollywood's just cranking out culture. Okay, so here's a couple other things. Right? I'm giving you the background of these protests that, by the way, are not going to go away. So in Nigeria, the majority of external receipts are oil. So by far, it's all about oil. The price of oil has just plummeted in recently, and it's going to stay down. It's not going back up. And Nigeria is the eighth largest exporter of oil in the world. And so like the receipts, what we call like external receipts, meaning the income that you're getting, that a country gets from selling goods and services abroad, because the nature of a country, you want to sell more to other countries than you buy from other countries. The receipts in Nigeria have just gone down precipitously. Here, next slide. This goes to what David was saying. In the Transparency International, it's a corruption index where they look at the ability to easily do business in a particular country. Nigeria ranks 144th out of 180 countries as meaning that it's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And what that means is that it doesn't have a really solid infrastructure that is held in place by rules, regulations, and a legal system that can force people, and get people to do exactly what they need to do for the good of the order. Remember earlier, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the tragedy of the commons. It's like we all got to do what we got to do for everybody. Like we pay taxes because that's what you do for a whole society. And when people stop doing that, or when it becomes impossible for a government to get everyone to do all the things they're supposed to do, then we have corruption. And so this is one thing. This is what David referred to as being just. David, go ahead. Yep.
Oh well, yeah. I asked my mom about like something she knew, and I looked at this and like if like for like the average salary for like a Nigerian senator is around $2 million, and like
Yeah.
the U.S. one is like 17400. So like that just stems from the fact that like basically they keep money in their own pockets. Is just
Yeah.
that kind of like sign of corruption that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like it's the politicians, and I think I read that politicians in Nigeria are like in the top 5 or top 6 or something of highest paid politicians from anywhere in the world, right? Which says something, right, about the money coming in and going to a very small number of people. And so what you've got is this, and again, y'all in the home audience here, really fast, understand that the reason this is big is because Nigeria is a country that is shaping the rest of the world. And when Nigeria has the kind of implosion that we're starting to see, that spills over to other countries all over the world. And so here, let me just show you a couple more things. So next, if you just like the next slide, just this. So what I would say, David, is like, well, this goes back to my initial point. While we see that, you see all these signs about SARS, right? This, special anti-robbery squad, and this Stop SARS, and but what's driving these protests is inequality, which is like an extreme inequality, and then corruption. Those two things together is really what's driving the protests. Because something, police misconduct can't bring so many people out into the streets. It does it does once, but they're not going to stay in the streets. They're not going to keep pushing. And so we've seen lots of different protests in Korea, but it really, or in Nigeria, but it's really corruption and extreme inequality. So here, by the way, corruption is our problem, not subsidy, right? This photo, I think, is from a couple of years ago, right? No to bad government, right? It's intense. Go to the next slide. Well, this is my final slide on Nigeria. I just want to show you this. So this is the full population, sort of laying it out in 2100. This is the estimate, right? And so look here. So we have Nigeria, we have the DRC, right? Democratic Republic of the Congo. We have Ethiopia, and we have Egypt, and we have Tanzania. So 5 of the most populous countries in the world are predicted to be African countries. And also, once again, what's really notable is the population of China decreasing. And man, this, like, China being able to get population under control just says something. And China's heading out around the world, man, and doing in many ways what the United States did in the later part of the 19th century and early part of the 20th century. And so while we, by the way, are closing up the borders, and our idea and what we're saying, if you think about the messaging coming out of inside the Beltway in the United States, it's like, close up the borders here at the very moment that a country like China is going out into the world and establishing relationships all over the world, including all over Africa. And so while we're getting small, they're getting big. And that's why this is the century of the Chinese. It will not be the century of the United States, my friends. And you might want to think about learning Chinese instead of studying German or Spanish or French or whatever it is that you're studying. Go for Chinese. Hey, David, what do you like? I don't know. What do you see, like, when you think about this as a person who is of Nigerian ancestry? What else would you comment on?
Overall, I guess the whole idea of SARS is kind of just like presents the idea of like the police state, and how, like, if you can very quickly, the police can be designed to not be for the people, and can just be for like the oligarchies and stuff, just for them to like protect their own property. Because SARS all it stems from is for people to try to their idea of protecting property, because a lot of this stems from like the idea of like minimal, like small attempts of stealing and stuff. And like to them, the only thing to them is about protecting, their wealth and their property, and it has nothing to do with actually protecting people. You see it every day as like they're like unforgiving and who they like kill and stuff. It's like the only point.
Yeah, it really is this idea that when you have extreme inequality, you're going to have people who are committing lots of street crime, because that's just the nature of it, because people are going to try to survive, and they're going to need to survive. And the more you have that, then the more you're going to have a police force that is willing, able, and strong enough to just kind of step in and control whatever happens in the streets. And they represent the rich and powerful. These kinds of police units always represent the rich and powerful. They don't represent the people themselves. So yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. And so, you get corruption, you get inequality, you're going to have this, and then you better have someone to protect you when you're driving through the city in your Porsche or your Benz or whatever it is that you're driving. But yeah, you're going to need protection. But this is the struggle around the world, right? This extreme inequality that is growing, that has grown along with globalization, and then the need for really strong police units, which is what we see in the United States. Black people in the United States are, what I said earlier, like, David, I don't know if you see this, but it's like what I referred to as kind of like canaries in the coal mine. Black Americans have been talking about police excessive police force, police corruption, these police units that are paramilitary in the way they operate. So this is what's going on in Nigeria, right? So what's going on in many places, and have been saying this is a wake up for people, right? But other people don't see it and they don't push it forward. But in many ways, that's what's going on because of gross inequality. Yeah. I don't know, dude. Any final thoughts here?
I mean,
hey, what do Nigerians? I got one. What do Nigerians think about the Chinese? Like,
the Chinese.
What do you hear about Chinese coming into Nigeria?
It's well, like my mom was kind of like, she's kind of like my mom's a little more optimistic, I guess. She's kind of like as much as it seems bad as corrupt with of obviously of them trying to like invest and like basically they're almost like trying to colonize it. She has this idea that like Nigerians will it's gonna come back to bite them because they'll find a way to steal their money in a sense. Like I guess like they think that like we're better con artists in a sense. So I don't know. I don't know. Nigerians are kind of funny like that. They think that like they can outsmart people. So like she thinks at the end of the day, the Nigerians will outsmart them.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so, man.
Oh yeah.
You know why? Because it's like the money, right? So basically, what's going on is when you have excess money to invest somewhere, you're going to go somewhere and you're going to invest it. And so Chinese are, super invested in the United States and in the West, but they're smart. They're saying this: we got to get out of the West a little bit, and we need to move in other places. And so, you go in with cash and you spend that cash, and you're not spending the cash on the people. You're spending the cash on rich people. This is how we did it in the U.S. It's how the Europeans did it throughout Africa and Asia and South America. It's how the Americans do it. You give the money to the elites, and the elites then give you access to their goods and services. But the elites walk away with their money and they don't really care. They're just basically selling you all of the rights of things. So like, in Nigeria with oil, the Shell oil company, for example, I mean, we just look at the oil companies, the way they operated in Nigeria and the way they polluted and just destroyed so much land. But that doesn't matter to them, right? They paid off the elites, and the Nigerian elites just said, okay, here, you can have access to our oil. They just make sure that they get something. And, that's the nature of corruption. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's really hard to outsmart money. But I don't know. Nigerians are pretty smart. Maybe they'll figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Anything else? Any final words? Oh, wait, we have a couple questions. Will we ever all move to a single language, and how long would that take, and what would it be? You know what? There was this language, Jamie, one of your mods studied it for a while, Esperanto. It was really big in the 1970s. It was developed, and it was an attempt to have one single global language for everyone to speak, but it never really took off. And so, it just didn't happen. And my answer to that is no, I don't think. Well, I don't know. I watched Star Trek, and Star Trek, that's like 400,000 or 500,000 years in the future. They don't have a single language. So that means we probably won't, right? Isn't Star Trek real? Is that real? Jeff, is Star Trek real? It's future, right?
Don't ask me. I don't watch Star Trek.
All right. All right, man. Yeah, I don't think it will. I don't think it will be. But I do say, though, if you
Live long and prosper.
all right,
That's all I know.
I would venture to say you might be really wise to be learning Mandarin. So, what else? Do we have another question, or are we
That
good?
was all.
Yeah, that was it.
That's it.
That was it from the
All right,
stream.
man. All right, listen. Hey, David, you can just stay. You can just stay in. I'm going to continue to talk about the U.S. You can just stay there. I'll just bring you back on later. It looks. Wait, hang on. Yeah. Who else do we have? Catherine. What's up? Why don't you turn your camera on really fast and let me just introduce you. See where you're. All right, hang on one second. So we'll have. Yeah. Catherine, what's up?
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Dude, I'm okay. I am all right. Hey, where are you right now?
I'm at home in like Ardmore, Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Ardmore. All right. And David, I didn't ask you where you were. Where are you
Right now,
currently?
yes, State College.
Yeah, State College. All right, Mom. And Catherine, what's your ancestry?
So I'm adopted from China.
Mm-hmm.
But like the family I live with is Irish.
Uh-huh. How old were you when you were adopted from China?
My first birthday. So when I was 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered studying Mandarin?
I did like Chinese lessons when I was younger,
Yeah.
but they didn't really stick. So
Dude, there's still time, my friend. Come on.
yeah, I want to go back and like see everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many times have people asked you in your lifetime, where are you from? Just out of
Like
curiosity.
a decent amount of times.
Yeah.
Because like if they see me with like my mom, they'll be like, oh, and be like kind of confused or like thrown off.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how do you identify yourself? Just as like when someone says like it just is talking about your ancestry, like what do you say?
I usually say, I don't know, like I've been asked that before and I like don't really know, but I usually just like Chinese. But my family is from like Ireland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Like this was one of the really fascinating things about being adopted, right? It's like migraine. It's like with you, David, your family leaves Nigeria, they come here. It's like Nigeria is a part of you, right? Like some people can come to the US, their parents can come from another country and they just sort of move in. They just become part of the next country and their parents' country of origin isn't really a big deal for them. But for some people, this is what I was saying earlier about like Nigerians, some people, it is essential to who you are, right? It's going to be. I don't think I've ever met a Nigerian who didn't pass it through multiple generations. Hey, Catherine, have you ever been to Ireland? Is your family like into Ireland?
I haven't. No, everyone's like over here.
Yeah, I got you, man. All right.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Good for you.
That would be so cool to go over there.
Dude, Ireland's very cool. My wife and I were looking at photos. I've been there several times.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's a really awesome place. But every life is awesome. So just So listen, are you cool? You just wanna? How about if you just stay on? And by the way, do you have anything to add to the Nigeria conversation? Because otherwise, we're gonna move on to a different one.
I just thought it was all like really interesting, like seeing the different, like with the different wealth groups, like wealth classes, and like the population affected by that was really interesting. It surprised me a little bit, but I don't have that much to say on it.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. Let me show the two of you some things, and then we'll come back. So here, this is the United States. This is median net worth in the United States. So when we talk about net worth, what we're talking about, you add up all of the everything in your life that has value. So your house, major purchases like car, just the major stuff that you could sell and make money off of, right? So not like a riding lawnmower sort of thing. And then your stocks and your savings accounts and all of the retirement accounts and this sort of stuff and various investments. You add all that up and you subtract your debt. And your debt includes, like how much you still owe on your house, right? So you might have a house that's worth $300,000, but maybe the bank owns $280,000 of that, and you only have $20,000 in equity in it, right? So therefore, but if we add up median net worth, so median net worth, one other thing here before I talk about it, there's mean, which is you add everybody up and you may add the net worth of everybody in a group, like say in the United States, every American in the United States, and then you divide by the number of Americans. right? So that's mean. And that's going to be much higher because when we're talking about net worth, this includes, people like the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates and, the Amazon guy or whatever, all that, right? So they push that out a lot. But if we look at median, what we're looking at is like the net worth of the top half versus the lower half. And the median is the one right in the center. So half the people above, half the people below. And so we're looking at for education, the median net worth for education level of head of household. This is household median net worth based on the education level of the head of household, right? So look at no bachelor's degree. So we have white people, Black people, Hispanic, other, which is Asian, right? And mostly Asians, Native American and Asian, but mostly Asian. And then over here with bachelor's degree or higher. So once again, white, Black, Hispanic, and other. So just look at without a bachelor's degree, look at the difference between white net worth, which is almost $100,000, the median, right? So this includes the households in which the head of the household is like 28 years old versus the head of a household who's 78 years old. And then look at the difference here. Obviously, if you go to college, you make a lot more money, right? But look at the difference between white people and Black people and Hispanic people. And most notably, look at the fact that on average, the median net worth of white families without a college education is higher than Black and Hispanic and Native American families with a college education. So like, dudes, look at these differences here. This is really big. And by the way, Catherine, just so you know, or so everybody knows, but one of the reasons so like if you were to take Black Americans, if we were just to take this number and we separated out Africans from Sub-Saharan Africans from Black Americans, meaning Afro-Caribbeans and African Americans, the Africans would be much higher and be more similar to Asians. And one of the reasons it's so high for Asians is because a much higher number of people of Asian ancestry in the United States are also recent immigrants and came here with college degrees or with the intention of getting college degrees, right, as students, and then stayed here in the United States and so earned much more money. And so the Asian immigration boom in the United States just absolutely has taken off in the last 40 years. So, but in any case, look at the differences here. This is really big. White families versus families of color. And what this is, if you go back to the class that I just did about the role reversal, and when I talked about white history, if Black history had happened to white people, if you look at history as we see it with Hispanics, with Black people, with Native Americans, as I talked about, because Native Americans, the net worth is going to be like down here, even with a college education. And here, Native Americans is going to be, really, really low, lower than Black Americans. It's it takes a long time. You don't just suddenly get at the starting line. You know what I mean? Like you're not just there. And like David, so for example, in your case, like your parents, when they came to the United States with college degrees, they moved ahead of, even though they were Black, they moved ahead of so many other people who didn't have college degrees. Like all these other people, like they immediately just started at a different starting line because that's just the nature of it. That's how it operates. So, okay, next slide. So by the way, Catherine and David, what I want to just get you to do is just comment on a couple of these things, like what really stands out to you. So here's income. And once again, it's mean and median. So median, so when we look at this income right here, the white circle, that includes the really mega rich people like Bill Gates and Buffett and so on, right? But when you do mean, or pardon me, the mean, that's the mean, the white one, sorry, man. But when you do median, it just reduces the impact of their extreme wealth, right? And just so you understand that, because I understand that many of you are bad at math. So listen, if David and Catherine and I were to average out what our income is, I'm assuming that the two of you are students, so you have student type jobs and you don't make a lot of money. So let's maybe assume you make like $6,000, $8,000 a year. But if you had my income in, then the average income between the three of us would be like, $30,000 or something, right? But that says nothing about the two of you, right? You don't make much money. And it doesn't say anything about me. It basically would say, oh, Sam Richards, oh, he's part of this group that doesn't make a lot of money. But that's what if we do mean. But if we do median, then it's a bit different. It's going to be much higher. All right, man. Go to Benny. Well, wait. We got to go back. Oh my God. Look at the difference here. Look at income. So look at white, black, Hispanic, and other. And once again, the other is primarily Asians. The vast majority of that, of the other is Asians, and that includes Indians in the subcontinent. And so just look at the differences here, right? This is what we're operating with a lot. And we're not talking about the cause of this yet. We talked about it a little bit, but I'll get to it later, a little bit later in the semester. But those are some really pretty significant differences. Now, mind you, let me show you. Anyway, let me go back to the two of you. What jumps out in terms of those differences? What jumps out for you? David and Catherine. Go ahead.
I'm honestly not really that surprised by the difference with the bachelor's or higher, and like the white or Asians, I guess, being like the most. I just feel like they're usually given more superior positions, and they're seen more as like the majority, I guess, in a way. So I'm not really surprised by that. And also with the mean and median, I feel like the stereotypes that are placed against the specific races, like Black people or Asians or white people, like Asians are seen as like really, really smart, and they get like better positions in better fields. Also with white people, like they have more of an advantage with that too, just being white over like someone who's Black or like Indian or another race.
So listen, let me comment on that. Where people of Asian ancestry often experience discrimination is being kind of pushed into technical jobs and not managerial jobs. Now, that has historically been the case in the United States. So it'd be like, we'd look at you and be like, okay, she's probably really good at like working very diligently on her own, but she's probably not going to be really good working with people out here. So therefore, we're going to slide you into these other positions and not give you opportunities to move in these other directions. And that's where historically Asians have felt. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when we look at the economic structure of Asian households, we see that it's bifurcated. So you have a high number of people who do really, really well, highly educated, came to the US with education, really high. And then we have a population of people of Asian ancestry that's really struggling along. And so it's like that. It's like a peak here of really wealthy and then a peak here of not doing very well. But when we put them together, it equals doing pretty well. David, do you have anything to add on any of that?
What you're so stressed?
So Brandon.
Oh. Wait, what?
I guess basically like one of the things people talk about how African Americans are like they have no reason to say that their race is the reason they struggle when like Africans do well, and like it really just stems from like the generational wealth, because like when Africans come to America, they're not with the burden of never having generational wealth. Like my family generation was able to accumulate that wealth so that when they did come, they did have money and they were able to they didn't have this kind of burden where like they grew up. Where there was a time where they didn't able to have wealth because of like slavery and like other forms like Jim Crow laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, like generational wealth is key. It really is key. And that's the thing that we often don't talk about. Here, let me show you another slide here. This is median household income by by race, but over time, right? And so look at how as it goes up for Black Americans very slowly, right? It goes up for Hispanic Americans, but it's also going up for white Americans, right? And again, here's this income for Asian income, which is like household income. And so we see household income is highest among immigrants because it's a household income. You're bringing all the income of all the members, and immigrants are more likely to live with multiple people, multiple generations in the household, all contributing money to the household. And so we're going to see that for new immigrants, including Hispanics. One of the reasons that it's higher than Black people for Hispanics is because we also see lots of greater numbers of people living in one household. But the key is, and then Native Americans is sort of about here, but notice how it does go up, but it goes up for everybody, right? It goes up for white people. So it's like generational. So the idea is like, hey, why not back here, in 1965, you were here. You've had lots of time to catch up. And you think, Black Americans, for example, have caught up a little bit, but look at what's happened with white Americans, right? And so let me show you one other thing really fast. This is pretty notable. So take a look at this. This is the share of growth of wealth. So this is complex. So you're gonna have to be, I'm gonna move off to the side here. I'll just stick my head out. So all the wealth that was created between 1983 and 2010, okay? And so this is, who got that wealth? Where did this wealth go? So it's like earlier, we were talking about Nigeria, right? And so Nigeria's got a lot of wealth, but who's getting the wealth over these past, 40 years, 50 years? Like, where is it going? And so here, what they did was this is just the United States. We broke it into quintiles, 20%, groups of 20%. So the bottom 20%, the poorest, the second poorest 20%, the kind of middle 20%, then the second highest 20%, and then this is all the highest, the richest 20%, right? So we think like, whoa, okay, so of all the wealth that was created between 1983 and 2010, that's like 27 years, who got that wealth? Where did it go? So it didn't go down here. So the poorest actually lost money, they lost wealth. The second poorest lost, the third poorest lost. So the bottom 60% actually in purchasing power parity, right? PPP, those of you who study economics, right? In PPP, they actually lost wealth, okay? But then we move here to this fourth, this fourth highest 20%, and they got some money. But then look at the richest people and look at the top 1% of all the wealth that was created in those years. 38% of it went to the top 1%, and three quarters of it, basically 75%, went to the richest 5% of Americans. And so we go back to Nigeria, right? This is the same thing as in Nigeria. In a way, it's like, dude, these rising expectations, what's going on, right? You're creating all this money, but you've got this middle class here, and the middle class is really struggling, y'all, right? Like right now, we're sort of hanging on, but what's happening in Nigeria is very likely to be what's going to be happening in the United States in about 20 years. And by the way, it's the reason why Donald Trump is in power. But here's what I want to ask you in this. So if I can bring so you all see this, right? You see like the richest 20%, the richest 5% in the US is getting really, really wealthy. And all of this wealth, the trillions of dollars, man, that was earned in those years, all the new wealth. Okay, so come back on the screen. I'm going to ask you. So here's a quiz for you, right? During the Bush administration, right? Of all the income gains, right, that was generated, right? All of that, the income that's generated, that the richest 1% of Americans, this is the 8 years of the Bush administration, the richest 1% of Americans got 65% of those income gains. So here it was 75%. During the Bush administration, it's 65%. Okay. So this is just, Republican Bush. It's like Republicans are known to be, really a party of big business and rich people and so on and so forth, right? During the first 5 years of the Obama administration, okay, how much of all the new wealth that was created in the first 5 years of the Obama administration, and I want to remind you that the economy just blew open in the first 5 years of the first year was tough, but after that it took off. What percentage of all of that new income, the new money, went to the richest 1%? It was 65% under Bush. What was it under the first 5 years under Obama? What do you think? What percent went to the richest 1% of Americans?
I honestly want to say 90.
90?
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, how about you?
Like 85.
Yeah, those are good guesses. That's pretty impressive. Given that under Bush it was 65. Obama's he's our communist president, right? Wasn't he a socialist? I think. I don't know. That's what they say. Listen, the answer is 95%. And so what we're seeing here is that kind of like Nigeria, all of this wealth is created and it's going to the hands of fewer and fewer people. And then, we get something like this. If you take a look at this graph here that we're going to put up. Well, hang on. What do you think about that? Do you guys didn't you grow up thinking that Obama is like this president that really supported poor people and the people? And I don't know. That's what I hear. That's what Biden says anyway.
So
what do you think about that?
I mean, I always thought like that the same way, but I always knew that like as the poor get like more poor, the rich get richer, I guess. So it's not surprising that like so much of that like income is going to the wealthiest people, just because that's kind of just how it is, and
God,
it's like not surprising.
Come on, have some hope, my friend. It's so jaded, bro. David, how about you, man?
I mean, I guess when I grew up, when I was like younger, I guess I just like assumed Obama was great and everything. But like as I get older, it's kind of like Obama's kind of the same idea of just like the same old politicians, where like so it's like essentially the people on top are the ones that have the most influence and stuff. So that they are the ones that can basically, they're the ones that hold the money, they hold the power, and if like basically there's been no changes in our system for wealth distribution. So like the trend continued because we never made any changes to it.
Yeah. Well, yes. Okay. I'll respond to both of you really fast. It is true, however, that there's a world of difference between the Obama administration and the Trump administration. Okay. And the Obama administration and the Bush administration. There is a world of difference. So we're not all the same. But in some ways, as you just mentioned, David, there's a system. It's a system of the economic system. The institution itself is pretty entrenched, and it's hard to break free of it, right? And the Wall Street bankers are running things, and like it's hard. You know what I mean? And the same bankers who were in charge under Bush were in charge under Obama and are in charge under Trump. So it's sort of like, okay, well, whatever. So there is certainly some of that. Let me just show you this other graph here. I don't want to do this one. Go to the next one. Yeah, just look at this, right? So this is actually pretty telling. So this is just white wealth and black wealth. Okay, that's all. It just doesn't. And I'm going to just stick with this because I found it. So it's in 2016. And it's the share by 10%. So this is this is the population, the white population broken up by 10 percentage points. So this is the poorest 10% of the white population, the second poorest 10% of the white population, the third poorest, et cetera, and then the richest 10% of the white population. Okay, you got that? Makes sense? And then same with the black population, the richest 10%, the second richest, third, and so on. So this is just the black population and wealth. It doesn't say how much wealth it is, because clearly white people have much more wealth than black people in the United States, right? It's not about that. This is about which 10% group owns most of it, right? And so look, the richest 10% of white Americans control about 75% of the wealth. And lo and behold, the richest 10% of black Americans control about 75% of the black wealth. So 75% of the white wealth, I want to say, the richest 10% of white Americans control 75% of the white wealth, and the richest 10% of black Americans control 75% of all the black wealth. And so it doesn't matter. It's not about race. It's not about ethnicity. It's the same thing. Like black people have a lot less. Asian people have less. Hispanic people have less. Native Americans have less. But nonetheless, within each population, the distribution of wealth is very similar. Dudes, quick thought on that.
It kind of just like it's the idea that like basically the amount of wealth that's in the country is held by a very select few of people, and because of that, it creates a problem where like less people have power to do things or to make their shape change. We're basically hoping for the most influential of people are like kinder to us or whatever, because basically without money you don't have much power, you don't have much influence to do things you want in the country.
Okay. Catherine, final thoughts, my friend.
I would agree with what David was saying, and also that we, like those who have less money, I guess, depend more on the people who have more money in ways that like they hold the power, so there isn't much room for change to be made without that money or without that like source of income as high. What you're saying?
Well, and there is, right? Mind you, there is, of course, right? But the first step is just understanding it. So we start there. But all right, listen, we're hey, for the two of you, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks. It's nice. It's just nice to hear what people are thinking. And next class, we're going to talk about the elections. Dude. Oh yeah, because I know tons of covers will be on the election that day, and class was going to prevent 50 plus people from tuning into their favorite news station. All right, listen, man, we will talk about the elections on Tuesday, and I promise I'll focus the conversation on things that I think are actually really important. Is there a direct relationship between wealth and population? Yes and no. China and Nigeria are both getting wealthier, but the population is going in different directions. Are they headed toward a sweet spot? Yeah, Nigeria is getting wealthy, except that if the inequality continues to exacerbate in Nigeria, they're going to lose their wealth standing in the world, and just have a really massive population. So you gotta foment the middle class, and that's what's happening in the U.S. by the way. But we'll come back to that. All right, listen. See you all. Sign up for the groups. If you haven't done a global, sign up for your global on it's Thursday morning. We have a lot of spaces, so do that. You can go to your dashboard and see what you still need. So get caught up. All right, see you. Peace. Thanks, y'all.